Get this show started, folks.
Hey, John Bel, you know, I saw you a while ago from a distance, and I said, you know what?
There's some steps over here.
I just get it.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Sean Wilson, Secretary for the Department of Transportation and Development, and I have the good fortune to serve as the MC for this program. It's an honor to be here today to celebrate a decades-old milestone achievement that's a result of tremendous collaboration. Additionally, this is the first groundbreaking of many I hope to come that the department will conduct, not just on flood control, but also on road projects. And many of the people that are on the stage today have been tremendous partners. The Comite Diversion is a crucial flood mitigation project that's been discussed for nearly 3 decades, but was never able to move forward due to a lack of federal funding and some bureaucracy that we've been able to resolve. This is a joint collaboration between the Department of Transportation, the United States Army Corps of Engineers, the City of Baton Rouge, and the Comite River Basin, with tremendous support from legislative and our congressional delegation. So without further ado, I'd like to invite my boss, Governor John Bel Edwards, up to say a few words, and then we will proceed with the program. I know we have 1 or 2 that may have to leave early, but let's hear our Governor, Governor John Bel Edwards.
Thank you. Thank you. This is one of those really good mornings. You know, I got out of the car and I was shaking some hands on the way up to the stage, and I said, this is one of those really good mornings that you look forward to for a long time. And I want to thank everybody for being here today as we commemorate the start of a project that has quite literally been a generation in the making. I want y'all to think about that. That's why this is such a really good day. And I want to especially thank members of our congressional delegation who are with us today. Senator Cassidy, you're going to hear from him in just a moment. Congressman Garrett Graves. And I want to just flat out tell you, we would not be here but for their work to secure the funding, for one, for the Corps of Engineers, but then the work to try to make sure that the Corps allocated that funding to this project. So, Bill and Garrett, thank you so much for your work. It is, I think, one of the most important projects that we have going on in Louisiana today, and the importance of which was highlighted in 2016, not once but twice, in the spring flood and then in the flood in August. But I also want to thank Senator Bodie White, Representative Valerie Hodge. They have both been on this project for a very long time and pushing to make sure that we pursued a strategy that was most likely to deliver the results in terms of the funding and the start and completion of the project as soon as possible. I also want to make sure that we thank other folks like Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome and all the folks in the parish of East Baton Rouge, Secretary Sean Wilson, Dr. Sean Wilson, who was here before, who leads the Department of Transportation. I also want to thank the Army Corps of Engineers and Colonel Clancy, and this is one of the last things that Colonel Clancy is going to do in this role, because he's about to go on to something else, and we'll have someone new working at the New Orleans District, running the New Orleans District, but I want to thank him for his work as well. Also, Colonel Babin of the Comite River Basin Commission. Thank you all for being here. And then I want to thank a couple of other folks. One is the current Chief of Staff to the President, who at the time was the Director of the Office of Management and Budget. And Congressman Graves and I actually had an opportunity to visit him a while back in Washington, and really made a strong pitch for this particular project to be funded in full out of the allocation that Congress was given to the Corps of Engineers. And so, again, I want to thank Garrett for his work there, but also thank, at the time, Director Mulvaney, and also the Trump administration for working with us on this project and help us deliver it. So, for nearly 30 years, construction of the Comite River Diversion Canal had literally been tied up in federal red tape. It lacked a real funding commitment, and yet the need to complete the project has only grown, and again, that was evidenced in a very vivid way in 2016 with the two floods that impacted Baton Rouge. At that point, we said enough is enough. And when I say we said it, I mean we collectively, the congressional delegation, the legislative delegation, the mayor president, and we were able to work together because the project is too important to the protection of our people for it to be stalled any longer. So we began a series of meetings with our key federal partners to convey the urgency of the project. A part of that was to focus on working with the Corps of Engineers to prioritize funding instead of letting them off the hook. And the decision to not deobligate this decades-old project, I think today has now been validated because we are breaking ground. And part of the negotiations included a commitment from DOTD to construct the 4 vehicle bridges needed for the project, one of which is going to be on Highway 61 right over to my left, your right. And just so you know, you're standing on the bypass road. So when the bridge gets built on the highway over here, this is where the traffic is going to flow north and south on Highway 61. But as a result of that strategy and those meetings, we announced last summer that full funding had been secured, and today we're able to see that commitment take a very tangible step forward to becoming a reality with the breaking of ground. Now, Sean wants to know who put the dirt on this bypass road behind me, but we'll figure that out and get it out of the way. So this is a true testament to what we can accomplish when we work together to achieve a common goal. It's the kind of determination and collaboration, quite frankly, that our citizens deserve. We all know that the people of Louisiana are resilient, and we know that they're going to do their absolute dead level best to help one another to recover. But these are the projects that we need to deliver for them so that recovery is easier and it happens less often. That's what this project means. So once completed, this $353 million project will provide much relief to the residents of this area. And I don't want to get expectations too high. Once this project is delivered, it doesn't mean that there will never be flooding in North Baton Rouge. But it does mean there are certain businesses and homes, certain roads that will not flood, and others that may flood but will flood with less water. So it's an incredibly important project. Obviously, we're going to redirect water from the Comite to the Mississippi River right through this patch of ground where we are gathered this morning. And this is one major example of the investments we're making in Louisiana's future. We've actually invested over the last 3.5 years more than $2 billion on transportation and infrastructure projects across the state. And here in Baton Rouge this year alone, more than $20 million has already been allocated to projects. And one of the things that I want to highlight is the efforts we're making on I-10 between the bridge and the split, using Garvey bonds that are actually going to allow for $650 million worth of investments across the state, but $385 million of that will be invested here in East Baton Rouge to widen I-10 between the bridge and the split. So, to further stress the importance of addressing public works, DOTD, for the first time, has actually more than doubled its statewide flood control program to $20 million. And while we're all proud of these achievements, our focus, like yours, is on the future. And that is why we're here today to break ground on the Comite River Diversion Canal, and it's why it's so important that we move this project to a speedy completion. So I want to thank everybody again for being here, everybody who participated in this effort to make it a reality. Today truly is a great day in Louisiana, and it's an extremely great day for everybody in this community of North Baton Rouge. So I want to thank you again. God bless you, and I believe I'm going to be followed by Senator Cassidy.
Yes.
And so I want to ask him to come up and again thank him and Congressman Graves for their work. God bless you.
I think it was in high school when the first flood happened in the 70s. That was quickly followed, a 1,000-year flood. That was quickly followed by another 1,000-year flood 1 or 2 years later. And at that point, we realized that something was going on, that flood patterns had changed, and that we had to do something in order to protect our community from similar events. That was in the 1970s. And I think I know Richard Baker started at that time to get the earmarks that would allow this project to complete. Now, just fast forward, I'm elected to the state senate. I served in the state senate for a couple of years, and one of my first knocks on the door was Dietmar Reedshire telling me about this project and about the need to complete it, and how the citizens of 3 different parishes, Livingston, Ascension, and East Baton Rouge, were paying a millage to provide that local match on the hope that the federal government would be able to address the issue. And in the state senate, a quite memorable event, was when Bodie White had me meet him in his sister's backyard. A helicopter landed. We get in the helicopter with my aide, and we take off and overlook this project. Of course, my aide got motion sick, and that was an event in itself. Lean over, buddy. I don't want to hear it. And so it just continued. But it was more than a story. It was also a tragedy. It was a tragedy of those first 2 years. It was a tragedy of the great floods of 2016. And if there is a silver lining in tragedy, is that it sharpens attention as to that which must be done and that which must be completed. There's a lot of folks, and the governor mentioned them all, who have been involved in this process. But I'll also compliment our federal delegation. And Garrett will agree with me that although he and I had a particular interest in this, it was with the aid of our entire federal delegation. So when the hurricanes hit, and there was an interest in doing something not just to repair Puerto Rico, Florida, and Texas, but to mitigate, to prevent future damage, we were able to step up and say, wait a second, what about the Great Flood of 2016? And if you look at the dollar value of the damage and the lives and the families so powerfully affected, there's as much a case to be made to address that issue as for these surrounding hurricanes. And so when the $10 billion were put up, we were able to get $300 million to complete this project. And just hats off. Hats off to the delegation, hats off to the people in the Trump administration, as the governor said, who saw that and supported us as we push forward. So one more thing I'll point out, to kind of repay those citizens of 3 different parishes who have paid that millage through the years in order to complete this. Not only will it prevent them from flooding, but at the point at which the Corps certifies that 50% of the work has been done, that will begin to reflect itself in the National Flood Insurance Program premiums that citizens pay. So not only will they be more secure in terms of flooding, but they'll be more secure financially, because that kitchen table issue, how do we pay our bills, will be made a little bit easier because they'll be paying somewhat less for the National Flood Insurance Program and their flood insurance premium. So it's not over, and I'm with everyone else. My commitment to this project remains as long as it remains to be completed. But I thank everyone here and everybody past and everybody present in making sure that this was begun, that it continued, that we're at this point, and that ultimately it will be all completed. Thank you all.
Thank you, Senator, and I hope you can stay as long as possible. You need to know, whenever we go on our visits to Washington, this is the guy who starts his meeting in his office and makes us walk with him to the Capitol, and he's a very fast walker, and I'm usually out of breath standing in the hall. So remember that next time, that I let you go first, and we can either walk slow or stay in your office. Normally I would give you a few specifics of the project, so let me give you that now, and then we'll follow the rest of the program. This project, as we said, is $353 million, and it consists of about a 12-mile diversion channel from the Comite River to the Mississippi River just west of where we stand today. It will include guide levees, the diversion structure at the Comite, as well as a control structure at Lily Bayou that has been already built, has been known as our big mosquito trap here, but it's now going to have some utility once this project finishes. We'll also have 4 drop structures at the intersections of the diversion Channel at McHugh Road, Bayou Baton Rouge, Cypress Bayou, and White Bayou. DOTD's role, as you know, includes everything from utilities and supporting the Corps in 61's bridge, but it also includes a CMAR project that's going to construct personally as DOTD 964, LA 19, and the 67 bridge where they meet the Comite Diversion. And as we drove up, I was sharing with the governor that this bypass road had already been built, so you know you're standing on where you will soon drive to get from north to south on 61. And we will also be constructing the GO-GO Bridge, that's G-E-A-U-X Bridge, over the diversion channel near Zachary. We'll include an 8-foot raised railroad track as well to the west of us, which is necessary to accommodate the channel. Now, crews began relocating utilities for this project in February, and the preparations for contractors will begin construction as soon as the Colonel accepts a bid from the Corps. And so we're excited to hear that. And now we're excited to hear from Congressman Graves, who's also been a big advocate for this project and one that accompanied the governor and myself to those meetings he mentioned, and will always call my phone and talk about the importance of this project. So, Congressman Graves, would you please come up and say a few words?
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Sean. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the Colonel because we're digging today. And I'm not sure y'all didn't get the memo about this. This is actually manual labor. You don't wear suits. All right, but more importantly, let's take a step back and talk about what's going on here. This project dates back, actually, some of the ideas dates back to the late 1970s. The late 1970s. We have been taxed in this area for 20 years. 20 years to pay a tax, pay a property tax, a millage to actually get this thing built. And this is, well, it's labeled as a groundbreaking, Dr. Wilson, Secretary Wilson. This is actually a re-groundbreaking. Because you can look back, we have the gold shovel from 2003 where we did this once before. We've actually broken ground and built a $32 million bathtub right over there that does nothing. And so this is serious. This is definitive. This is happening. This isn't incremental funding. We've secured full funding. And when you add it all up, actually the money just since early 2015, we're talking about actually just under $400 million. And look, as the governor said, as Sean said, as Senator Cassidy said, here's the deal. We are flooding. We are more vulnerable. We know it. It's a result of weather changes. It's a result of more water coming down in this area. It's a result of development. And we can't just stick with the status quo. We can't stay static. We've got to change and adapt. And that's what this project is. But the fact that we're talking about adapting from an idea that came up in the 1970s to today, this is ridiculous. This isn't the way government is supposed to work. And it's why people are so frustrated. So today's historic. This is a big deal. And let me tell you, there are a lot of people here, and virtually everybody here played a role in getting us to where we are. A lot of people. We actually didn't start getting the money for this project after the flood. We actually, in the first month we were in office, we were working with Senator Vitter and Congressman Richmond, and working with the state and working with Senator Cassidy and others. We secured $10 million in 2015. We were actually able to pull together tens of millions of dollars before the flood because we recognized this was a vulnerability. And of course the flood did cause a lot more attention, and that was helpful. And we did meet with the director of OMB, and I've talked to the president about this several times. You know, this project's a no-brainer. We're going to pay one way or another. We're either going to pay through FEMA, through extra flood costs, picking up our communities, rebuilding our businesses, rebuilding our homes, or we can be proactive and make an investment that's going to save money, that's going to pay off over time. And that's what we've finally chosen to do. And so, look, I want to thank the President who worked on this with us. I want to thank General Semonite with the Corps of Engineers. I want to thank Colonel Clancy and Mark Wingate from the Corps of Engineers, because we're out there advocating the White House and advocating to the Appropriations Committee and others. We need this project funded. These guys got to say good things about it. They have to say it's doable, and that happened. We had all of our delegations saying we want this to happen, and everybody was in. We had the state saying, yes, we're going to be here. We're going to be here with the money. We're going to be the partner with Secretary Wilson, with the governor. We had Chris Knotts, all these folks saying, yeah, we're going to be here. Comite River Basin Commission with Dietmar and Colonel Babin. We had our legislative delegation knowing that additional funds were going to be needed from the state to ensure the cost share could be there. And Senator Erdey and Senator Barrow here, and Senator White and Representative Hodges, which I got to tell you, I mean, the task force that you created to help make sure that every task, every milestone was hit, that people were held accountable. That was important to make sure that this project kept moving forward. And I want to give a shout out to Senator White, because all this stuff's happening behind the scenes. People don't even realize it. This project was completely stopped back in, what was that, about 2010? Wasn't it about 2010? It completely stopped because we were in a fight over mitigation. This project was going nowhere, absolutely nowhere. And we started working with Representative Hodges and Senator White and Senator David Vitter in Washington to make sure we could get the Corps to change their mitigation plan, to actually break this logjam that had stopped this project for years and years. Nothing happening for 7 years, nothing. So look, there are a ton of people that deserve a lot of credit. But one, this is the way government's supposed to work, with local, with state and federal government working together. This is the way government's supposed to work, where you actually build projects that save money, not spend exponentially more money picking up the pieces after the disaster. This isn't partisan, it's just the right thing to do. And it's incredibly unfortunate that it's taken 3 decades to do the right thing. But I'm excited about this. I'm excited that we're going to be re-breaking ground. I'm excited that everybody's here to join it together. But last thing, everybody's got to remember, this project, this idea, is circa 1986. Think about all the changes and development that have happened right here, right here in our community. We can't stop. We don't need to be preparing for 86. We need to be preparing for 2036. And so, Governor, I'm excited about the $1.2 billion in additional funds that we have coming to help build that next increment, whether it's Darlington, whether it's Comite version 2, whatever it is, because we can't stop. We brought a total of $3 billion in new funds, $112 million for East Baton Rouge Parish, $68 million for Livingston, plus about another 40. And we've got to keep making these investments to make our community resilient, to protect our people, protect our businesses, because y'all are worth it. Thank you.
I wish you had a little bit more passion about this stuff, Congressman. So, no one knows more about the real policy benefits of full funding of a project, and that's no one more than the Corps of Engineers, because they're the recipients of dribbles of funds, and this guy who I'm bringing up next knows the importance of really getting funding, whether it's this project or West Shore, any other flood project, how to get something fully funded. And one of the things that you may not have heard is when we go meet with General Semonite or go up to the Corps, whoever's from that district usually gets summoned up with us, not necessarily by us, but by the leadership. And Colonel Clancy has walked with us throughout this entire process, and so much so that probably a year into working together, and I've worked with several in my tenure at the department, we always, keep our fingers crossed that it works out, because they're there for 3 years and then they move. We actually tried to convince them to get this guy to stay, because we've had such a wonderful working relationship with him. Our staff enjoys working with him, and the relationship that our two departments have. So with that said, let me ask Colonel Michael Clancy to come up and say a few words.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Secretary.
Take everything I said back.
Sorry about that, Channel 33. All right, well, good morning. What a great day. This is a major milestone in this project. I'm in the middle of the batting order here with several more speakers, so I'll try not to be redundant. But I just want to, like everyone else did, thank everyone who's participated in this project, from the individual citizens who've been paying their millage for years on up to some people I feel I have to thank by name. Federal infrastructure, Corps of Engineers Civil Works program is not easy. You've heard some of that today. This project has been, from good idea to today, has been decades in the making. There's a variety of reasons for that, lots of challenges, but we've got a wonderful team in our congressional delegation in D.C. We've already heard from Senator Cassidy and Congressman Graves. I think they were maybe being a little bit modest. They only referenced a few numbers. Let me give you some more numbers. In the aftermath of the disaster seasons of 16 and 17, wildfires, mudslides, a couple major hurricanes, all the flooding here in Louisiana, Congress gave the Corps of Engineers an extra $17 billion in supplemental funds to get after flood risk projects. So you could do the math, 1 over 50, do the math, 1 over 38 Corps of Engineer districts. Louisiana got 10% of that money. So that is a testament to our congressional delegation's ability to make your needs known, the state's needs known, and bring the funds we need to do our projects. So thank you to the congressional delegation. In Baton Rouge, the governor is certainly interested in every project the Corps of Engineers is up to in Louisiana. I brief him regularly, but I think there's no project, at least in my portfolio, that he is more personally involved in, personally conversing in, doing meeting with my bosses in D.C. So, sir, thank you for, I wish you didn't have to be a project executive on this one, but without your leadership, combined with the congressional delegation, we would not be here today convincing senior leaders in the Corps of Engineers, in the Army, and in the White House that this project is needed, it's doable, full state backing. Even before the supplemental funding, we were making progress. So thank you, sir, as well as to Secretary Wilson. You know, Secretary Wilson and I have been doing a weekly phone call on Comite for a while, just what's the latest, keep it moving, keep our two organizations in close contact so there's no gap between he and I. Also want to thank some guys at the project level whose names haven't been mentioned yet. I'll just name two. From the Corps of Engineers, Bobby Duplanche. Bobby, raise your hand. Bobby's been the project manager on this project for years. If you've been involved in Comite, you know Bobby. Meetings, hearings, whatnot. And then on the state side, Chris Knotts. Where's Chris? Chris, raise your hand. Chris has recently been promoted to chief engineer for DOTD, but he was the project manager for DOTD on this project. Those guys, for those decades you've heard about, have been the nuts and bolts workers who we would not be here today without them. So everyone in the Corps of Engineers became an engineer, joined the Corps of Engineers to build stuff. The bureaucracy just goes with the territory, but we'd rather be out here doing projects, making stuff happen, moving dirt. So we're about to break ground. Just a quick update. Our first major contract is already advertised. It's going to close on the 5th of May. That's for all the work right here, right around Highway 61. Got to create highway bridges, the railroad bridge. There's a massive amount of utilities right under our feet. Those have already been starting to move by the utility companies. By August or so, the major construction of the canal to connect to Lily Bayou, go under the highway and the railroad, etc., will be at work. Construction is not easy. I'd like to think the hard part is over, getting the funding, getting the bureaucracy out of the way, but construction is not going to be easy. I know there will be challenges, but the team we have together, the Corps, DOTD, the parish, and the Comite River Basin Commission, as well as the local citizenry, I know we'll work through those challenges. Our goal is to have this project done by the summer of 21 and be ready to deliver the benefits the project's intended to, reducing flood risk in North Baton Rouge. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Clancy, and our prayers are with you and your family as your next mission, I believe, is Afghanistan. And we've talked, and so when he leaves here, he's going to continue his service, and we look forward to him coming back to enjoy the food and the people and seeing the success of this project. Unless you've ever planned a groundbreaking or ribbon cutting, it's very difficult to choose one person to speak on behalf of the House and one person to speak on behalf of the Senate. And in my 15 years at the department, one senator has stood out in order to be a part of this conversation. And you probably wouldn't want me to tell you this, but after the flood of 16, legislators and elected officials are also affected by the flood. And while I don't want to go into the details of his personal stories around there, but this is a guy who sat in my office and was at a level of frustration with tears in his eyes and a tremendous amount of passion to get this project done. And so I want to personally thank him for trusting this administration to go to Washington and put up as much of a fight as we did, because when others wanted us to just say, we don't want to fund this project, let's let the Corps off and do it ourselves, he was one of the hardest guys for me to convince that that was the best strategy. So let me have Senator Bodie White, who's a good friend and a strong leader, to speak on behalf of the Senate. And as he comes, I want to recognize Senator Barrow and Senator Erdey for their participation and representation here as well. So Senator White.
It's been a long road. 1983, the first big flood I recall. I was at the sheriff's office, just graduated college. I worked the flood. The whole south end, first the north end had flooded with the Comite, and the south end with the Amite. I observed it. I knew how it would be. Go to the legislature. First thing I did, in August of '03, was a groundbreaking right across 61 to start the construction of the Comite River Diversion Canal. Didn't even know Congressman Baker could run an excavator, but he run the excavator a while. And a lot of you same people are here then. And Richard was able to push that project along, and so we were able to get earmarks then. Those eventually went away, and it became more difficult to get financing. The project's moved, it stalled. Along comes Congressman Cassidy. I had to explain the project to him. I had to explain the north end of the parish, how it drained, put him in a helicopter, flew him over it. His assistant got sick, and I begged him, please don't throw up in Governor General's helicopter. We sat down in my backyard and let him do what he had to do. But it's a long story. It's a lot of roads we've went down. I've been to Washington a ton of times about this project. I want to thank Colonel Clancy. First thing, when he came on to Louisiana, I asked Garrett, I said, tell me about him. Are we going to be able to work with him? Is it going to be a priority for him? And he said he's a great guy, and I think he's going to help us. So Garrett comes in. Garrett worked together. We worked together in coastal restoration when he was with the state. Very knowledgeable and passionate guys. Had one argument with him in the last 15 years, and it was heated and long. And it was over this project. But we got through it. And he's been a champion. Garrett Graves and Cassidy helped secure this financing along with the Corps of Engineers. I'm going to tell you, in that first flood in '83, there were 53 homes and 200 business flooded, about 172 million. But nothing changed. No new projects, no mitigation for the floods. Everybody knew it would occur again. 2016, 1,900 homes, 7,900 of them in East Baton Rouge Parish. We go from 172 million to $3.8 billion in damage. And of that, 2.3 was in this parish, EBR, where I live and many of you live. But in the parish I used to represent in the House, they were substantially damaged too. Millions of dollars of damage in Livingston Parish. It's been a long road. People still ask me in the last couple of months, do you think it'll ever happen? They've been paying the tax 20 years. I've been paying the property tax for 20 years. And I helped to pass it again almost 10 years ago to renew it. I think people can finally rest assured it's going to happen. And I want to tell you, Bobby DePlanche is our new project manager. He moved his office from the Corps in New Orleans up to Baton Rouge. Bobby, and so has many of these colonels, have felt the spear of my tongue over this project over the last 10 years in committee when I question them. And I tell them it's just got to be done, and sometimes somebody's got to push it, and somebody's got to have the tongue to push it and put the pressure on everybody. And I've told this governor, and I've said it before, if we can't get this job done now, don't vote for him and don't vote for me. But it's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Bodie. You can see how much commitment he has to this project over the life of his career. You know, we also have a representative here. We got a new representative, Representative Adams. But when I looked at the list and thought about who was also very passionate about this project, none other than Valerie Hodges came to mind. While this is funded, she's keeping her eye on it. She's moving to the Darlington. I've gotten about 4 emails since this session started on that project, but I understand that it comes with the territory. So let's hear from Representative Hodges.
Well, thank you, Dr. Wilson. I want to say thank you for inviting me to be here this morning. It's an honor. I want to say thank you to Bobby Duplantier and Dr. Wilson and to our governor for their hard work on this on a statewide level. And there's just no words to say enough thank you to Congressman Graves and our senators and our congressional delegation. And there's somebody here that's less well known, but he was an integral part of why I started the task force. I kept hearing from my constituents, why are we paying taxes on a project that's virtually dead? And I didn't know anything about the Comite Diversion Canal. I was like, I would ask people and they'd say, the Comite what? And so somebody mentioned the name Lawrence Callender to me, and wave Lawrence, and he's a consultant. And I said, could you teach me a little bit about the Comite Diversion Canal? And so that little bit turned into weeks and months of educating me, and he helped me stand up the task force. In 2014, I did a House concurrent resolution creating the task force to bring everybody together, because it was out of frustration of my constituents who had been paying those taxes for years and not seeing anything happen. So after a few of the task force meetings that we had in 2014 and early 15, what I discovered and what we discovered, and at that time, Congressman Graves wasn't a congressman at that time, but he was actually on the task force, and he knew a lot about the Comite diversion. And so we brought everybody together, and what we discovered, really, it was a lack of communication and a lack of leadership on that particular project, and a lack of belief that it could happen. And so there was an urgency in my heart to say, look, guys, it's not a matter of if we're going to have another catastrophic flood. It is a matter of when it's going to happen. And I kept saying it's a matter of when we have another catastrophic flood, not if. And somebody said, well, you starting to sound like Noah. But I said, well, maybe so, but I'm not trying to build an ark. I'm trying to build a canal. And the only thing that I think would have probably worried people more than me talking about another flood had I had a bunch of animals following me around like Noah. But I just knew that we had to get it done. Never thought it would be in my lifetime that I would see that. But unfortunately, it did come in 2016, and I woke up at 4 in.the morning, and I'm looking at Doug. I know you experienced the same thing, and I'm speaking to you from my heart about from my constituents and from my personal experience of why we're here today, because and Dale lives across the street from me, and they experienced the same thing. Woke up with 3 inches of water in my house, and it quickly rose to 4 feet of water, and it wasn't just water. It was sewage, and it was contamination, and it devastated everything in our home that my husband and I had worked for all those years. And it was probably the most traumatic thing that I've ever been through. And I speak for 145,000 families that flooded. And so I remember that day when we got out, we finally got evacuated by boat and was at a friend's house. And I remember that afternoon, I got a call from the governor. And I had never spoken to John Bel, and I was really surprised that he called me, and he said, I just want you to know that we're praying for you, and if you need anything, we are here for you. And I remember the second call I got shortly after that was Appropriations Chairman Cameron Henry. And Cameron said, where are y'all going to live? And I said, I don't know where we're going to live, but he offered his Pentagon apartment, and we lived there for 4 months. And so after we got moved and got back on my feet and got past the shock, I remembered the 145,000 families that had experienced the same thing I did, and it gave me a renewed push to fight for the Comite Diversion Canal, for this never to happen again, because those people did not have a governor to call, and they didn't have another representative to offer them a place to live. And I thought, what about them? And so I knew there was an urgency even greater than had been before the flood, that I had to do something. And so I went to the well. This next session, the next year during session, I went to the well as often as I could, and I talked about the Comite Diversion Canal. I went and I talked about, could we put HMGP, CDBG, OCD money, HB1 money, HB2, and everybody really got tired of hearing me talk about it, to the point Representative Bill Yacht came up to me and he said, Representative Hodges, I want to talk to you because we're worried about you. All you talk about is that darn canal. And I said, well, he said, are you okay? And I said, I am going to go 145,000 times until somebody hears that we've got to get this done. It's not an option. We've got to get it done. And so during that 5 months of session that we had, and I thank you for that, Governor Edwards, that it was so many chances that I had to go to the well, and something good did come out of that. So I just want to say thank you to everyone here. There's so many people to take, because it was truly a team effort. I mean, all of us working together, and that just shows and it's a bipartisan effort, that when we work together, and that's what our constituents, that's what the state of Louisiana and the nation want to see, is that their elected officials working together for them. And so I just can't express how eternally grateful I am, and ask God to bless you. And I thank God for this day that we're out here, and actually the public can see, as all of us working together have done our part. And I just want to say God bless you, God bless Louisiana, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Representative Howard. Hodges. We're almost to the end of the program, but I do want to acknowledge Representative Barbara Carpenter, who couldn't be with us as her family deals with her own personal tragedy. Savita Williams is here representing her. So thank you, and please give her my personal prayers and commitment, as well as those of those on the dais. And representing parish and local government, we'd like to invite the city parish president, Mayor President Sharon Weston Broom, whose Department of Public Works is going to be responsible for this project once we're done. And so we're excited to have her here. She's got a wonderful staff that we work with, as well as we have in the audience the mayor, Mayor Barrow of Central, and elected officials and city councilmen from Baker and Zachary and Central. So would you all raise your hand? Let us know that elected officials are representing those areas. And Mayor Broom, would you please come forward?
Well, you know, the flood of 2016, it was called the Great Flood of 2016. It really didn't have a name, but that certainly did not minimize the impact that it had on the citizens of this parish as well as surrounding areas. It didn't minimize the impact, as you heard, that it had on Representative Hodges, and actually a number of us who were flooded and had to navigate our way back to our homes, sometimes taking over a year, close to 2 years. For those of you all in the audience, it didn't negate the impact that it had perhaps on you, your family, your loved ones, or your friends. So today is very welcomed news for this community, because the people of our city, of our parish, of surrounding areas will have hope as we move forward, because this is a demonstration of government working together, not to be reactive, but to be proactive. As you've heard from many people, this is long overdue, but the manifestation is certainly bringing all of us a very happy day. It is because of bipartisan support that we were able to secure federal funding for today's groundbreaking. And the truth be told, to get things done, it takes partnerships at all levels to really make the kind of impact that we will see with this project. And today, of course, is living proof that when we collaborate and address issues of common concern, then we can see great things happen. So I want to thank Governor Edwards, Secretary Wilson, Senator Cassidy, Congressman Graves, Senator White, Representative Hodges, Colonel Clancy, and Colonel Babin, and everyone who has played a part in this. I heard Senator White talk about his longevity in advocating for this project. Well, you know, I spent a number of years serving with Senator White, and I can attest to the fact that both of us representing this area, he consistently was in my ear about what we needed to do to collaborate to make this happen. So I want to give him special recognition for seeing this come to pass. You did a good job. Last but not least, I want to thank Fred Rayford, who works for city parish government, for his leadership in our transportation and drainage process and walking me through this as we came to this culmination. Thank you so much, Fred, for your work in this. As we enter into the Resurrection Easter holiday season, this is a good way for all of us to celebrate and remember what it means, certainly, to reach out and respond and to show our care and concern for everyone. I hope that you all have a pleasant holiday. Thank you so much.
Now we got our last, but of course not least, speaker, Colonel Babin, and as Mayor President Broom talked about partnership, the next speaker is the chair of the Comite River Basin Commission that's been virtually joined at the hip with the Department of Transportation over the years to help deliver this project. So Colonel Babin.
Thanks a lot. It's everything's been said. But we people who have fought this thing through all this time at the Comite River Basin Commission realized how it would not have happened if it had not been for all of you folks that participated in it to get it going the way it should have been. Actually, I'm really reached a point where I wasn't too sure that we were going to see it happen. I so much appreciate everybody. I hope I didn't meet everybody, especially our Honorable Governor and our Congressman. A special thanks to Congressman Graves and all of their staffs who you know, if you call the governor's office, sometimes he didn't answer the phone. But having been elected the president of the Comite River Basin Commission, I just love it. I'm honored that they thought enough to keep me on, and we're like everybody else said, we're not giving up. Some other people we need to thank is the media. All the media folks that are here, they keep the public going. They keep everybody ready to back us up. And some people don't like what they say, and some people do. We pretty well get along with them, I think. You've heard enough talk. We all on the same boat. We all in the same sheet of music. We're getting it done, and we're going to get it done and get it done. I promise you. If anybody happens to want to see what the Lily Bayou structure looks like, it's just right across the street where those pylons guide you, and then there's some people would take you to show you. You can drive over there, you can walk over there, and see what the $32 million job was there, because it really did help. But that's enough of politicking. I really appreciate it. All my people do, and we're gonna stay with it and join forces with the governor, with our task force. We have a member on that task force, and we back up the rest of these people 100%. And thank y'all for coming. We really appreciate it.
Some people bring their own shovels, but that's interesting. So before we dig dirt and celebrate that project, I do want to thank Chris Knotts, who's our chief engineer, former head of Public Works, and Pat Landry, who's also now replaced Chris in Public Works, who are managing this project from DOTD's perspective. Their tasks have been huge with all of the Public Works challenges, and I appreciate that. And Todd Donmeyer, our District 61 executive, the district administrator, and any staff he has, the DOTD folks who do a good job at the best we can with what resources we've been given. For the groundbreaking, the first photo op will be with the stage guests and the legislators, and then we'll do one with local elected officials and the governor after that, and the congressman. And so you all will please join us, and we would encourage you to use every picture you have on social media so people can see and celebrate in this event with us.
Hey, folks, we have shovels and buckets for everybody over there, so you can take a piece of Comite with you.
I call on him very, very often. I was his battalion commander.